Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Undercut Podcast. Charles Leclerc is the King of Italy edition. What a race by the man, and what a race in general. We have lots to talk about in this episode. Coming from all the way to the McLaren fumble, the lack of pace which Red Bull showed at the circuit, K-Mag's race ban for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and apparently, Lance Stroll has just driven a go-kart for the first time, and he's not finished any other seating class of races and gone directly into Formula One. At least that's what Oscar Piastri said. Nitish, care to chime in with some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, starting off with something positive, Charles Leclerc, oh, the king of Italy. Yeah, I mean, that one selfie of him and the entire Monza crowd, I think that picture really personifies what you just said.
Yeah.
And I've even seen messages saying that he's the new tire whisperer. I mean, who would have thought that 2024 would be the year where we would praise a Ferrari strategy? Like, out of all the teams. Oh my God, imagine just talking to your friend and saying, "Oh, did you see the Ferrari strategy last race? What an absolute W." So, I mean, 2024 has just been that year. I saw a comparison with last year's race victories where it was like a blue line of Max Verstappen compared to a colorful rainbow, of winners this year. So, wonderful race. And yeah, I still remember I was standing for the last 6 or 7 laps, just praying to God that Oscar Piastri doesn't overtake Charles Leclerc, and yeah, he definitely did not let that happen, and that's just Charles Leclerc. I mean, yeah, King of Italy is a justified statement to just describe that race.
Yeah. And, this brings back the thought which says that, everybody's a Ferrari fan. Um, no, because it truly was. You would at some like because McLaren have sort of been dominating for the past few races, you really needed that Ferrari win at Monza, and this perfectly sets up next year if hopefully Ferrari can keep this up. And yeah, again another McLaren fumble, and this sort of brings up, a lot of topics which are discussed in the race, beginning with papaya rules. Uh,
Oh,
papaya, papaya rules. Yeah, that was an interesting concept because Zach Brown after the race had told, yeah, it's just simply about not crashing. But what I had first assumed about the papaya rules when it was first spoken about on the radio was that maybe it's that if Oscar does get into the lead, which he did after lap one, and what an overtake that was, because that was just full on pure racing. It was hard racing, but it was fair racing. Lando did leave space, and Oscar did complete the move, and all kudos to him. And he did look like the faster McLaren package on the day.
absolutely. I mean, McLaren. Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, just agreeing to the fact that we needed a Ferrari win. McLaren, midway through the race, I thought it would be one of those, last year's Red Bull victories where McLaren just completely dominates it. And in fact, I actually thought we might see a Lando Norris double pit just to get the fastest lap. But I don't know what happened, but the tires just weren't good enough and they had to do the double pit. And yeah, the start, I'd say, I mean, you have to give it to Oscar.
Yeah.
But Lando, yeah, definitely he pulled it back. But I'm not sure what caused the tire issue, but at the end of the day, Ferrari won and everyone's happy. So yeah, good news, but they definitely have to look into that because this was a major opportunity for Lando to cut the gap by a huge margin because Max Verstappen was clearly not even contending for the podium. So you could say it was a lost out opportunity. But again, I mean, speaking of Red Bull, I still remember there was this one time where Checo, I believe, was chasing George in the straight, and Checo had DRS and he couldn't complete the move. So that's something. It's been a while since I saw a Red Bull in that situation.
Yeah.
Usually when Red Bull has DRS, you just move to the side so that there's no confusion. But this time, even with DRS, he couldn't complete the move in the straight. And after that, Checo, God knows what he was thinking. But dangerous driving from him there. I mean, it's just thank God that George Russell didn't crash because I think in the last 5 races or so, he had a DNF and a disqualification.
Yeah, he
And
did.
last thing he needed was another potentially good race, ending in a crash with a mindless Checo Perez.
Yeah, you're not wrong because I mean, to add to your point there, I think Checo did end up completing the move, but it was only just. He did like it was literally at the breaking point of turn one where Checo could actually complete the move, and that was only because he had the inside line. If it was round the outside, I don't think
Yeah.
Checo could have completed that move. But yeah, Checo had some. Checo was all out, wasn't it, by coming to defending George Russell in the middle of the straight, traveling at 350 kph. And he's just like, yeah, I'm going to give it a little bit of a shove. And thankfully, yeah, nothing too big happened because yeah, that would have been a pretty bad crash. Anyways, coming on to the McLaren side of the race. And yeah, talking about papaya rules, what I thought was that it would mean that if Oscar did end up taking the lead, it would also mean that Lando would be given the position back purely because from a drivers' championship perspective, I think they've got the constructors pretty much wrapped because it's only like an 8 points gap now to Red Bull. And I think Singapore is coming up as well, where Red Bull are not historically strong, although you never know. But yeah, so I think the Constructors' Championship is pretty much papaya. Uh, and but yeah, so and one of the things which I'd seen a big discussion was that have McLaren given up on the Drivers' Championship? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, even if they did before Monza, I don't think they should right now because we've all the calculations which were made earlier were assuming Max Verstappen to finish P2 and Lando to finish P1. Lando finishing P1 is still a realistic thing, but I don't think Max Verstappen finishing P2 is a realistic thing. So now instead of covering the gap 7 points at a time, I'm pretty sure he could cut it by more than 10 to 15 points. So realistically speaking, we have a title race here, but the people in question are Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. And I will favor Max Verstappen in this one. But
Yeah.
again, if you have a clear fastest car, there's little Max Verstappen can do.
Yeah, and I also think Monza was sort of a one-off race for McLaren purely because Ferrari had gotten 9 upgrades to this track. I think they probably did not have any development throughout the season. Their only 2 upgrades this year were probably Monaco and Monza, and
Monaco.
this, this was the Monza spec. And next race you watch, they're gonna slot in right back behind the Red Bull. So yeah, McLaren do need to feel optimistic, and they, I think the problem is that they do not want to let Oscar Piastri feel let down. I think McLaren are a very emotional team when it comes to sorts because take the example of say Mercedes, Ferrari, and even Red Bull during the Sebastian Vettel days. They were clearly favoring one driver over the other, and I think that should be the case with McLaren. If you want to win championships, you have to be ruthless. And it's not the case like Piastri is also within a shout of the World Championship. It's only Lando. So you have to favor one or the other, no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, McLaren is McLaren's mindset is an amazing mindset when you take the constructors, but for drivers, as you said, though it may seem biased and unfair to one driver, that's how things are done because only one driver can win. And regardless of how equal they are, there's always a better driver. And yeah, as you said, it's not that Oscar Piastri is in the race. In fact, Oscar has to do quite a bit just to beat Charles Leclerc for the third place spot in the championship. So Yeah, if there is any scenario where Oscar should give up the lead, I think McLaren should take that call. But you can't be too sure, especially considering how Oscar got his first win. If they
Yeah,
were really that team, um, yeah, we can't try to win with that mindset. But sure, I mean, when your car is that fast, I'm pretty sure both the drivers will finish miles ahead of Max Verstappen. So if they can maintain the same gap, I don't think the strategy should be like, I mean, I don't think the driver swap would be a problem because Lando will definitely finish a few places ahead of Max. But yeah, if there is a scenario, McLaren should definitely. It's not about letting Oscar down or anything, but come on, he's the only one who's actually got a shot at it. So they should be brave, you know. I don't want to call them the word I want to call them, but
yeah,
yeah, they shouldn't be scaredy cats.
yeah. Yeah, you're spot on there, mate. I mean, why McLaren? Like, we really want to see a battle for the championship in Abu Dhabi. However, that doesn't seem to be the case the way things are running. Hopefully, for McLaren's sake, they do actually, pop some sense into their head and actually start favoring Lando over Oscar. Because quali pace, I am sure Lando Norris will qualify ahead of Oscar Piastri because man's pace is brilliant when it comes to qualifying. I think he was what? How far ahead was he in the qualifying this year? Was it like 3 tenths? How much was it?
Oh yeah, I mean Oscar. I mean, sorry, Lando is
Lando. Yeah,
replicating last year's Max Verstappen. So
exactly.
there's no one would question Lando's qualifying skills. It's just that in race he just can't pull it through. So
Yeah. No, I would argue Lando's race pace is also better than Oscar Piastri in majority of the races. Again, this was again another one-off race where Oscar Piastri was the faster McLaren during the race because, yeah, well, Lando was given the opportunity to undercut Piastri, but he still couldn't. Piastri just pulled away. I think there was a point wherein Oscar Piastri was in fresh tires and he just put in like 4 or 5 fastest laps at once and he extended the gap to Lando. Yeah, that was pretty insane. And I thought that, yeah, it's probably Oscar Piastri who would win the race. And if we're talking about a Ferrari strategic masterclass, I would also call it a McLaren strategic disaster class because why would you pit your driver when you've got a shot at winning 16 laps before the race ends?
I mean, yeah, there were some complaints from both the drivers saying the tires was just weren't feeling well, and Lando was also complaining that he was putting too much on the front left or front right, I'm not sure. And I mean, even Ferrari to do that was a really brave move because at the end of the race, they gave a close-up shot of Charles Leclerc's tire.
Yeah,
And I'm telling you, if that car was running for 5 more laps, the tire would probably shred to pieces. So,
yeah,
but yeah, double pitting that late was yeah, it's not a great strategy, but I don't think they could have done anything else.
yeah,
But again, about speaking of the fastest laps, yeah. So usually when you get fresh tires, setting a fastest lap isn't a big deal. But McLaren were getting those new fastest laps on decently old tires. So that was something which made me, really support for Ferrari that race. I didn't really, I'm literally not ready for McLaren domination. And so that's what I'm saying. So even Max or any team, when you shift to newer tires, getting a fastest lap is expected. But they were putting fastest laps on old tires, and at that point, I knew that it is McLaren's time right now.
yeah.
So that just made Charles Leclerc's win all the more better.
Yeah, I think that race should have very well been a McLaren 1-2
Want to.
if they hadn't double pitted. But obviously, hindsight's a beautiful thing, and we can't take anything away from that drive Leclerc just had. Because if anyone was supposed to win that race, even from the Ferraris, it was supposed to be Sainz because he qualified ahead of Leclerc. And yeah, but Charles Leclerc, and when it comes to Monza, he's a different animal, and he will do absolutely everything to win two races in a year. That is Monaco and Monza. And I think he said something similar in his interview as well,
Yeah,
right?
he's mentioning I mean, the goal is to win every race, but if there's two races which I have to win, is Monaco and Monza, and this year I was able to do both, so I'm like really happy about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but that was absolutely class from the man. Well, I've just been basking in Charles Leclerc's glory for like 5 days now, and it's been amazing. I can tell you that. Because, yeah, a Ferrari winning in Monza, that red overall crossing the line in first. I think Alessandro Del Piero was waving the checkered flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an Italian football legend. Yeah, so it was just the most picturesque moment ever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Anyways, now
Um,
coming on to Red Bull's lack of pace. What could have possibly gone wrong there? Because in qualifying, Max Verstappen, who was placed seventh, was 3.5 tenths behind not pole, but Lewis Hamilton, who was in sixth. That is crazy. What happened
I
there?
mean,
I really could not process it because what the practice sessions had showed us was that if anyone was going to be on pole, it was probably the Mercedes along with the McLarens and Max Verstappen. Yeah. What are your
I
thoughts?
mean, you know, Checo, that was probably a good performance, but taking Max Verstappen, I mean, it's not like you can even try to think of a reason because Max Verstappen made sure, he just made sure that no matter how bad the car is, he will contend for P2. He will be in those podium spaces. But the qualifying was bad. And yeah, as you said, 3.5 tenths not to pole, but to Lewis. So
Yeah,
I mean, even if you think that the other cars got better, there's no way Red Bull are like this behind because even for the majority of the season, Red Bull were a pretty fast car, despite Checo starting from the bottommost of the bottoms. He
yeah,
always made sure that he got, P7s, P8s. But
yeah,
this time, I mean, no matter how hard Max tried, oh, I still feel for Max. The gap. Oh, he's like, I'm trying everything I can, but there's nothing. It just is like that. It started off with the Dutch Grand Prix and now Monza. Uh,
yeah,
the man who won the title before the summer vacation is
yeah,
now hoping that there's no final race drama. So
yeah.
I
I don't.
don't know, you know, no matter yeah, sorry, no matter how much you love Ferrari or Mercedes or McLaren, Max Verstappen's downfall is something I never thought. I thought I'd love it, but it isn't really that great. I So yeah, hopefully, because Lewis anyways is out of the topic when it comes to drivers championship. I'm still hoping for an Abu Dhabi, you know, who the winner gets it all race. Uh, Hopefully we'll get that. McLaren should be delivering that, but it's McLaren, so
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, you never know indeed. Yeah, adding to what you have just said, I do believe that Red Bull really need to go back to the drawing board and see what's gone wrong. And I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as Adrian Newey has announced his departure, we've just seen this huge downfall in Red Bull performance. And I've heard rumors that Adrian Newey should be joining Aston Martin next week. I think the
Yeah.
announcement should come when it's time for Baku. Yeah, that'll be interesting. That's one to watch out for. And yeah, again, we would love to see Max Verstappen get involved in another final race thriller, wouldn't we? That would be
Absolutely.
that would be pretty good. And I
Hopefully
now,
with without a
yeah,
Williams crashing out, hopefully.
yeah, hopefully without the Williams crashing out. Actually, I do hope the Williams crashes out this time if Lando is behind Max. However, I don't think so. It's basically impossible for F1 cars to retire at this point. We had a safety car crashing out this weekend, but not, but not, but not an actual F1 car. And again,
Mm.
oh yeah, another cool thing to talk about, Franco Colapinto's F1 debut was really good. I think this race, he probably finished closer to Albon, more than Logan's probably ever done.
Okay. That's an overstatement,
A ninth and
but
12th, that's really good
but
in his first
it
F1
is
race.
it is a pretty good. I mean, he started P18 if I'm not wrong,
Yeah, in quali.
and yeah, those were some clean overtakes. Um, P12 in your first race while starting P18.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Williams definitely showed promise. I mean, Albon with those 2 points. Yeah, we got six the entire season, so those 2 points really, count a lot, mean a lot. And hopefully they can take it forward, and hopefully the new Williams driver gets points without, people getting disqualifications. I
yeah.
love Logan Sargent though, but yeah, his 1 point came through a disqualification of the P10 driver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
What is that? Austin last year?
Austin, yeah, in
Yeah.
his
Home
home,
race.
he has four homes at this point. So
Yeah.
in one of those home races, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, kudos to Franco Colapinto, and what a drive by Alexander Albon. I think Williams just have a really good machine when it comes to the low downforce spec. They're really good at the straight line speeds, like when you go down through Kemmel Straight in Belgium, and of course the main straight in Monza. I think their high speed traps are one of the highest between teams. So I think Williams generally do perform well in low down four spec tracks, which is why we got to see such a great drive from Albon. Of course, that's
I
taking
mean,
nothing away from Albon's performance. He drove beautifully and he finished best of the rest. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even last year there was a ranking, and after Red Bull, Williams was the fastest in the straights. So though we don't have the points to show for it, when we do, I mean, it is pretty visible. It wasn't easy for, I think Kevin Magnussen was behind to catch up to Alex. But speaking of, I mean, okay, wait, let me just praise Alexander Albon a bit.
Yeah.
So, despite people making fun of the car, he's always shown that he's one of the better drivers. Top 10 every time in quali. You could expect a P10 from Albon, and he's just been that driver regardless of the car, putting up a good quali and definitely a not bad race every single time. And though I wouldn't want him to leave Williams, he deserves a good car for sure. And hopefully he doesn't have a Nico, Hülkenberg kind of story where he has great potential but just wasn't lucky enough to be in a nice car.
Yeah.
So hopefully Williams is good enough next year for him to really show his true potential. And now, speaking of K Mag,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah.
K-Mag.
Oh boy. So
Okay, so
penalty, that's a ban. I mean, that's such a
race
K
ban.
Mag
Yeah.
thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually look at the footage of why he got the race ban, I would say that that was not worthy of a penalty point. Like, he's obviously had much worse crashes, I mean, much worse incidents previously in the season for which he did deserve penalty points. But this incident did not just seem so. Like, why would you give penalty points for like that kind of an incident? It does not make any sense. But again, of course, you have to take the prior incidents into account, for which he probably did deserve race bans. But yeah, nevertheless, he's gotten to 12 now, and yeah, it has to be a race ban. And I think Oli Behrman's replacing him in Azerbaijan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is official right now.
yeah,
I mean, the rules are the rules. So,
yeah,
are people excited though? Oli
In his car, basically, because he will be the one of the starting drivers for Haas next year.
yeah, he will.
But um, yeah, I mean, it will be interesting if he again ends up in points, we might have a rookie of the year favorite already.
Yeah.
I mean, wait, is he even eligible for the rookie of the year this year?
No, he isn't. I don't think so. You have to, I
Yes.
think you have to drive a full season to be eligible for that. Or at least, be listed as one of the starting drivers for a team. I don't think so he is eligible. But anyways, Ollie Behrman does look like a very exciting prospect. And also, Kmart did get a point. Let's not forget about that.
Oh
I
yeah,
think, yeah, he
P10.
P10. Hulkenberg had a one-off race where he did not perform for some reason. I I I I I mean, yeah, it was quite a poor weekend for the Hulk, but yeah, K-Mag performed, so at least that's good for us. If one of the drivers is not performing, then at least the other one does, which more often than not is Hulkenberg. But this
But
also showed us that in this kind of an instance, K-Mag can do the exact same thing too. So that's really positive for us, and yeah, it would be a good driver pairing next season. I mean, an even better one with Ocon and Behrman. Yeah,
yeah, this
They have to make sure that Ocon doesn't crash into his teammate, but
yeah,
should
that's
should
true.
be an exciting.
teammate story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. Okay, moving on to the Mercedes. Well, not much to talk about there, is there? Lewis Hamilton was in no man's land. He did the best he could by finishing fifth. I think he was stronger than the Red Bulls, but was definitely not on terms with the pace of the Ferraris and the McLarens. They were just like a bit too good, like head and shoulders above the rest throughout the entire weekend. And it was another poor race for George Russell after such a brilliant qualifying. Qualifying third was probably the best Mercedes could have expected, seeing how quali went. Uh, Lewis should have probably qualified higher, but then again, he beat himself up too much by saying that, yeah, he should have probably been on pole or at least on the front row. And that emotional message where he said that, when it really hit his heart, when he said that Kimi would probably do better, Mercedes is a
True.
better, yeah, that really hit hard. But yeah, hopefully for Lewis's sake, his quality does improve. And George, yeah, I really don't understand why does he end up having such a poor race? Is it just the lack of race pace, or was it just that one incident at the start of the race which cost him the entire thing?
George,
I'd say is one of those just unlucky drivers. I still remember, was it, there was one race last year, was it Singapore or something?
Oh yeah, last lap crash. No,
Last
yeah,
lap.
no, I think it
so
was somewhat the last lap. I think there's like a lap more after that. Yeah,
yeah, and
but he
and
should
Like
have
he
gotten a
was
podium that race. Yeah,
podium.
yeah,
So I would say he's an
lucky
unlucky.
driver. I mean, we had the disqualification, we had another, relatively late into the race crash after that. So George Russell, I mean, you can't really say. I wouldn't say he's a bad driver, and I wouldn't say he's got a lack of race pace. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, because
He has won a race for crying out loud. Or
okay, two races, but
yeah,
I mean, he is always a weird driver. Like you can't really say anything. I mean, he's out qualified Lewis. The same time, there's just something which happens to him during the race. He
yeah.
doesn't do crazy bad, but his qualifying record is just something else.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I
He
see.
he definitely has got great quality pace, And that's the one thing I see about like this next gen of F1 drivers, excluding Max Verstappen, obviously, he's got tremendous race and quali pace. But when you take into account Lando, Charles, and George, who are supposedly the next big three, they do
Whoa.
have far better quali pace than their race pace. Like their like the position which they qualify, they normally end up below that, or and oftentimes end up staying at that position itself. So yeah, hopefully that's not a trend which would continue. And I saw this meme once where it was like, even if George starts at like the front of the field and Lewis starts from like 20th, at the end of the race, they'll probably end up together either ways. I think we saw a glimpse of that at Zandvoort, where Lewis qualified 12th and George was
12,
quite
yeah.
up the order. And but they still ended up together. And I think Lewis was supposed to finish ahead of George, but I'm sure team orders played a role there. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the older generation is definitely much better when you talk about the race pace. Take even K Mag, for example, take Fernando Alonso or
Lewis, for example, they
Checo, even Checo. Their qualifying doesn't really define their race. Their skills and their experience really, you know, plays a major role in the race, which is pretty visible, especially if you take Checo, Alonso, and Lewis too. When Lewis, he could qualify Q2, Q1, and he'd still get between P4 to P8.
Yeah.
That just has been his range for the past 2 years. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I mean, if it's a trend, things would get interesting because the person on pole wouldn't necessarily mean that he would win.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
a lot of F2 drivers, I mean, I don't know if it's the fact that they're used to short races or anything, but it should be interesting. I mean, the future generation, I mean, when Alonso is no longer part of the grid, I'm pretty sure F1 would be different.
Yeah, right. Okay. So moving on to the Aston Martins, Fernando Alonso wasn't particularly impressed with how the race went. Gosh, Aston Martin have had a really good, I mean, a fall off, haven't they? Because, well, comparing to last year, it's like night and days difference. Um, they weren't in the contention for points. I think they're now officially like the fifth fastest team on no, you're probably the fifth, the sixth fastest team on the grid. So yeah, it was really bad for Fernando Alonso, considering his standards. But I still think he delivered as much as he could for the Astons. And yes, for Stroll, it was pretty horrendous, wasn't it? He had like a bad quali and even worse a race. So yeah, when you compare that, I think this is the first race in a while where Fernando has finished so ahead of Stroll, like clearly dominating Stroll the way he's supposed to. So yeah, it was a pretty well mediocre race for Aston Martin. Not really much to talk about. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just been, a gloomy
Phase in that Aston Martin garage. I mean, Alonso has been trying. I mean, even Stroll. I mean, both of them they have been trying, but they've just not been able to show anything for it. And hopefully, your correlation with Red Bull's downfall in Adrian Newey, if proven true, that should be a pretty positive thing for Aston Martin, and um, hopefully Fernando Alonso can have a few final moments because
Hmm.
that man's way past his for
40. So you
Yeah.
never know which season will be his last. So uh, yeah, I mean, hopefully Adrian Newey just works his magic with a different team. I mean, Stroll was so bad. Oscar, known to be one of the calmest drivers, the next Kimi
Hmm.
Raikkonen,
Yeah.
he had to make the comment that Lance Stroll looked as if he was driving his first go-kart race.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, Oscar, he was pretty pissed. He was just heartbroken. I mean, even in the post-race interview, he just said that it just hurts. But yeah, I mean, the game's the game and it happens. But so, I mean, Stroll doesn't really have to worry. If he doesn't want to race, his dad will find a new driver, and if he wants to, he'll be in the team. But for Fernando Alonso, who's in his final stages, I guess,
yeah,
he will be pretty disappointed with these mediocre, not so memorable races. And yeah, I mean, there's still a handful of races left, I guess. And hopefully we see a happy Fernando Alonso again. Yeah.
yeah. And I think the only reason Fernando is really staying in Formula One well is because he's banking on Adrian Newey to deliver a car which could at least propel the Aston Martin into good points, if not race wins and contending for championships. But I think in the final stages of Alonso's career, as you mentioned, I think the motivation he needs is that when he wakes up in the morning, he should know that, hey, look, I'm actually competing for some good points here. I'm well into the twilight of my career, and many youngsters are actually not able to do that. So if Fernando does get that, along with the motivation, then Fernando, as we all know, he actually over delivers than what the car actually provides him. So if he does get that, that extra clasp of motivation, he should probably be contending for podiums if Adrian Newey does deliver.
I mean, yeah, there was.
Uh, I mean, last year they had an amazing start,
Yeah.
and I think mid-season or later into the second half, it really started where they were slowly losing places in the
Mm.
Constructors' Championship, and I think they did end up finishing out of the podium for the Constructors.
Yeah.
I think
Mercedes overtook them, or McLaren.
I'm not sure.
Ferrari overtook them.
So what was it? Red Bull,
Mercedes, Ferrari.
Mercedes,
Yeah. Yeah.
Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari. So
A disappointing end to last season and a not so amazing season so far for them. And
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, it's not like he hasn't achieved anything. There's nothing which Fernando Alonso hasn't achieved, um, except his 33rd win, third world championship. But
that's. I mean, yeah, you can all you
you're always hungry for more. And I still remember, I don't remember if it was this season or last season where Fernando Alonso was really confident with the Aston Martin and said 1-2 in practice, 1-2 in qualifying, 1-2 in race, total
Yeah.
domination. Hopefully that becomes a reality when Adrian Newey comes to Aston Martin, because who wouldn't love Fernando Alonso back on the podium? I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, a fairy tale ending, hopefully, or at least something close to that for the man. I mean, to race in three different decades is something crazy. It really shows the dedication and the passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah,
just.
well, for Fernando's sake, we all hope so, fingers crossed, that he does get a great car to deliver in. Because, wow, Fernando, at least contending for wins again, yeah, that would be a sight. And he would be putting in those cheeky one-liners back in again, give us all a good laugh. And yeah, it would be a sight to look forward to. And I guess that pretty much sums up today, doesn't it? Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
I mean, yeah, we're really coming off a great weekend for the Formula One world. And for all the okay, I'm not going to call McLaren papaya anymore after hearing papaya rules.
Yeah.
For all the
McLaren fans, the World Championship.
is in reach, and right now it's all up to the team, and hopefully we'll get a few non-McLaren wins, maybe at least a two or three. So, and yeah, 2024 would be an absolute heck of a season if that
Yeah.
does indeed happen. And yeah, and at least one more. I want to hear the Dutch anthem once more at least this season because it's really been a while, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's
It's
all
not been
really.
that big of a while. I think it was just the race before Italy. It was the Dutch Grand
Oh,
Prix.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It hasn't been that long, mate. Eh,
Uh,
Anyways, I get what I get where you're coming from. So wow, yeah, Max Verstappen's downfall has really how do I put this? Well, there are mixed emotions. Let's just put it that way. Um, I kind of share the feeling with you. It's sort of like if you've been, I don't know, let's just say being ruled by a certain person for a long time, and there's a change of person who's ruling, you are ought to feel a bit weird. But yeah, I want Lando to win the championship no matter what. I
Whoa.
want McLaren. I want McLaren to absolutely batter Red Bull in the constructors, which I know they will. At least on the constructors side of
Yeah, at
things,
least
I think that
constructors.
championship's pretty much wrapped up. And yeah, looking forward to the drivers. I want that Lando Norris win. I'm actually interested in seeing what his reaction will be because even Lando, he isn't one that would express like absolutely go bonkers on a race win or a pole position. It's a really calm reaction. But of course, he does have those cheeky moments where he, takes a dig at another driver or whatever. But yeah, and there are many Norris haters coming into the picture now, which I'm not sure I quite understand why. But anyways, yeah, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that will be it for
Today, the what Charles Leclerc King of Italy
King
edition
of Italy.
of the Undercut podcast, and yeah, this is me Nitish signing off.
Yeah, this has been us, and we'll see you after Baku. Bye. This guy, he's the man of the moment. Let's all worship him well because he's a saint here. Yeah.